Hello and welcome to the Mosaic International South Asian Film Festival, MISAFF, Day, I don't remember what, presented by the Canadian Community Arts Initiative, CCAI. My name is Ashad Khan. I'm the festival director. Very delighted to be here today with our festival advisor, CCAI festival advisor, Anya McKenzie. Hello, Anya. Joining us today, we have incredible filmmakers from all over the world. From India, we have Deepti Gupta, the director of the documentary film Shut Up Sona. Welcome, Deepti.
Thank you. Thanks, Arshad. Lovely to be here in this lovely company.
We have Sami Khan, the director of The Last Hour, joining us from Toronto, the co-director.
Hey, Arshad. Hey, Anya. Hey, everybody.
And we have Michael Gassert joining us from Brooklyn, New York, the co-director of The Last Out.
Hi, Arshad. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much.
We have Ariel Nasser, the director of The Forbidden Reel from Montreal. And finally, we have Sergio Kirby, the producer of The Forbidden Reel from Montreal. It's wonderful that you could join us despite the very, very busy schedules that you all have for this documentary Q&A at MISAFF 20. Welcome.
Thank you, Arshad.
Thanks.
So we're going to start with Deepti and her fiery first feature, I'm assuming, about Sona Mahapatra. Deepti, tell us, what compelled you to make this film? And thank you so much for bringing it to MISAFF.
Thanks, Arshad. Really happy to have it here. So I've been friends with Sona for more than 10 years, and I've kind of watched her grow as an artist for the in the last decade. And the one thing that I started noticing was that she asks a lot of uncomfortable questions, and it throws up it throws up things and people kind of troll her a lot. She's always questioning why things are not equal, to the extent that it often kind of goes against her professionally. So that it intrigued me, because in India, in the film business, there's not too many people who speak the way she does. There's not too many people want to bring up gender issues, because it kind of, on the whole, goes against women. So women don't like to bring it up, because they want, its status quo is easier professionally. And it was very parallel with the journey that I was having in cinematography in Bollywood, which is where, women weren't known to be behind the camera. So I found a synergy in her story and my own. And I felt that symbolically, it's very important to tell, because it symbolizes the story of so many women in India in totally different professions. So, yeah, I felt it was just important to say what she was saying, for her to be heard, because her trolls were telling her to just shut up and sing.
It is such a funny film. It is hilarious, and it is very energetic, very feminist, very powerful, and very appropriate title. And she's a very good singer. She's really quite amazing, and she's famous. And for her to be so outspoken and so brave, it's really heartening to see that. And now, how do you think that film would be received in India, for example? I know people all over the world are loving it. You went to Hot Docs, you went to your NYC, and all over the place.
Yeah. Luckily, our very first screening was in Bombay. So the world premiere was at Mami. And it was very heartening. And you know how Indian theaters are there much. We have a big population, so there's many more people. So it was a house full screening, and people were laughing through the screening. And by the end, there was like a couple of people crying. And very interestingly for me, it was no different at Rotterdam. And it was no different in a festival called Gothenburg in Sweden, where these were the only few festivals that happened pre-COVID. So I was able to interact with the audience. And it was very surprising for me. Yeah, I know. And it was very surprising for me to see a very similar reaction. In fact, laughter in the same places and crying at the end. In fact, I was even asking people in Sweden, why are you crying? I thought you're done with the gender problems. But it's very heartening when you've told your own story with total belief, and it becomes a universal story and everyone connects to it. I don't think there can be anything better than that.
Well, that's wonderful.
It's a beautiful film. Yeah. Well, I wanted to jump in now, if
Yeah.
Arshad will allow me. But I wanted to say it's a beautiful film. I really enjoyed the music, and I also enjoyed the cinematography. I love music
Thank you.
docs. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Another film that played hot docs as well, and that we're very excited to present at MISAFF is the Forbidden Reel. So, and we have Ariel Nasser here as well as Sergio. So we wanted to understand, at least for our audiences, what made you want to go back to Afghanistan to shoot this amazing epic film.
Oh, well, thank you for the question. I'm really, really pleased that the film was selected for MISAFF. It's really a great audience for us to connect with this film. I guess, well, Sergio has his own reasons, I'm sure. From my perspective, I had grown up in Canada, but my father used to just tell me so many stories about Afghanistan that I really kind of grew up feeling very Afghan and hearing all of these stories. But they were told verbally, and there were no images to go with them. The pictures had all been lost. They were lost in the war. They were lost in a house fire that happened in Kabul, where my father's pictures were all burned. And so I was always very, very hungry for these images of Afghanistan's past. And I guess when I started to go to Afghanistan as an adult and spend time there as a filmmaker, I was always looking for these images of the past, right? Because I was documenting, for the most part, the present. I was documenting contemporary history with some of my films, but I didn't really find images of the past until I stumbled across the National Film Archive in Afghanistan, which turned out to be absolutely full of sound and image from all of this past history. And so for me, it was a really compelling challenge and kind of my heart's desire to share that as widely as possible. Because of all the years of conflict in Afghanistan, even though it has a small population, it has a large diaspora. And many diasporan Afghans like me kind of grow up with this real hunger for information and for imagery and for the music and culture of the past of Afghanistan. And so that was what I wanted to do, to pay homage to Afghan filmmakers and to feed people like me who are just hungry for this material.
And Sergio, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about the journey that brought you to this film. How did you connect with Ariel?
For sure. Thanks, Anya and Arshad for inviting us. It's really great to be on this panel with such great other filmmakers. Yeah, it was a really, it was a remarkable project for me to work on, and I was very grateful that Ariel came to me with the project. And what was wonderful about it was being able to work with Ariel, who had worked in the past in Afghanistan. So in a lot of ways, he was able to open up his past connections. You know, the access that we got was stuff that he'd been working on for a long time. So that made my job a lot easier. So I'm very thankful for that. And it just did. I mean, I was immediately struck by the power of the story, in that it's about films under attack and filmmakers under attack working in extreme environments and extreme conditions, with just a phenomenal passion to bring film to life and to bring it to in this case to an Afghan audience. Like, they were all in love with celluloid and the power of filmmaking, and they wanted to show their country to their citizens, and that really at the core was really a beautiful story and the struggle they were up against. So that was very much what motivated me to go.
And Ariel is also a Oscar-nominated filmmaker for Bazkashi Boys, and I think that he has had a nice roster of his own films before he made this feature. Speaking of Oscar nominated. Our next filmmaker is also a celebrity. We have all celebrity filmmakers today, and it's Sami Khan, who also got nominated for St. Louis Superman this year. We're very proud to have his film. He has had several films at MISAFF before. He's a MISAFF alum, and this is his second feature. First one was Koya, and we're very happy to welcome Sami and Michael Gassard to MISAFF this year with their film, The Last Out. Tell us a little bit more about that film, please. How did that come about? I know you've been at it for many years.
Yeah, well, thank you, Arshad. Thanks for having us. We should confess that we are old friends, very old friends, and you are older than I am. So I just want everyone to understand that he is older than I am.
I am your younger brother. Please, it's not nice to say such things.
But seriously, thank you, Arshad. Thank you, Anya. I just to people who are watching, I think that it's important. It's more important than ever for institutions like MISAFF to exist at a time when wealth is getting concentrated at the very top all across of society. That's also true in cinema. So it's kind of a scary time for independent filmmakers like all of us. And we depend on festivals like MISAFF. We depend on cinema goers to continue to adapt, to go to the virtual MISAFF. So thank you for having us. And sort of in that spirit, in that sort of David versus Goliath spirit, when Mike and I started working on this project way back in 2014, we were interested in what is the cost that it takes for a sport, which is a product, to be produced. What is the human cost of that? And we were looking at baseball, and we're looking at it through the lens of migration. And my parents are immigrants. Mike's the descendant of immigrants. So we wanted to make an observational film about a journey from Cuba all the way to the US. And of course, it was a verite film, so we had no idea the sort of twists and turns that the project would take us on. But that was ultimately it. It's what's the cost of this product that comes before you, and the way people are commodified in such a system. And later, one of our editors pointed this out to us, but there are a lot of films that look at the supply of migrants to the West, to North America, but there are not a lot of films that look at the demand for it. What draws those people to the United States in our case. And so that was like an interesting sort of fortuitous theme that came out of the story. But again, it's like that hidden cost of, especially now during COVID, where we're more aware of the sort of the wreckage that capitalism wreaks across the board. We wanted to really explore that through the lens of sports and through migration.
The wreckage that capitalism wreaks. Rakshan, can you please record that so we can send it all over the place on our Instagram? Very well said. And Michael, you have done a beautiful job filming with the cinematography and spending so much time with your subjects and really taking time, both of you, to tell this story. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how did you end up in so many times exactly when such things are being announced, when these people's lives are being changed so drastically? Like, I understand it's a film that took a long time to shoot. So tell us about the shooting of this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Arshad and Anya. And I just want to echo Sammy's gratitude for including our film on your platform and sharing with your audiences, MISAFF. I have to mention also our third musketeer, John Miller, who also was a cinematographer on the project, and he really set the look of the film. And we talk about some of these vintage prime lenses that we used, and even just some of the technical sides of my sound background and getting microphones close to people. But Sammy really keyed in to something that piqued my interest early on, not just with the dream of sport and pursuing the top level of your craft and even making sacrifices, but just the tremendous risk that these young men undertake as a result of the political circumstances, the ridiculous trade embargo, and just this whole need to capitalize on your gifts. We had a sense of where that story could go, but yes, it took being down there and really spending time with these guys and developing a sense of trust. And I worked a little bit with Sammy on Koya and on his feature film, and one of the things that was exciting to me about working with Sammy on this is that he just created the condition for me and all of us to pursue the story with our best gifts and with our best efforts. And that's sort of what we all, I think, did with The Last Out. Once we found these tremendous characters, we knew that we just needed to stick with them and be by their side, and really sort of be witness to their truth and their reality. So that's what we were after with this film.
Well, documentary filmmaking is so much about trust and about having the trust of your subjects. And also, I find that it's a lot about power as well. And sometimes your subjects are so powerless, and sometimes they are so powerful. So speaking of powerful subjects, I'm wondering, how did you, Dipti, how did you work with Sona? Because, I mean, did she have a say in the edit of the film, or how did it work? Like, what kind of relationship did you have to build? Because that's a very big personality that you're showing in this film.
Yeah. No, one thing that was that when we got into this thing together, that let's make something together, a part of it was also we wanted to share each other's journeys. And in the beginning, we didn't know where it's going to go. And I kind of discovered it as I went. So a part of her expectation was that it will showcase her music, but there was... I was kind of very clear that I have to keep the edit completely separate from, even speaking to her about it or even sharing ideas sometimes, which is difficult because she's also my friend, but the more of the difficulty in negotiating the power with a person like that is how, when you're filming someone who's very used to being in front of the camera and there's a projection that goes with it because they're a very well-known artist. It took me actually a long time to break down that projection, and for her to be so comfortable in front of the camera that she's not, portraying any image at all. She's not being the artist Sona or the star Sona or someone who's well known. That for her to completely get so comfortable that she can be vulnerable. Almost like I'm the friend in the room, but without the camera and without the sound and without the mics. That was the tough part, actually. It almost took like maybe 80% of the filming to get those parts. So it's actually 20% of the last part of the film makes much more of the edit because it took that long to break it down. So that was harder. And to see the relationship between her and her partner, and to be able to be in that space and be a fly on the wall was the hard part, actually. But the edit, that was not a hard negotiation, because there's no other way except to make the film the way you believe in it. A protagonist might think
said.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes someone if you're filming someone who's kind of a well-known star by themselves, to them, the film is just a reflection of their life, it's just reality. But I mean, we all know that in documentary, it's actually, we are looking for a deeper truth and not just a portrayal of some kind of reality, and it's always a truth that you seek somewhere within you. So it had to be personal to me. I in fact feel like I told my own story in some way.
Yes. Well,
I guess we all do that, right? And actually, I have to say, I'm lucky to have seen both the films of all of you here, and I really loved them. It's been absolutely, it's amazing for me that I'm in the room with these people. It's amazing to me. So yeah, So to the two filmmakers in the film in Afghanistan, or the person who was, fighting for all the film to not be burnt, it gave me goosepimples, because in my film school, we once, there was a fire and we lost some really ancient Indian film, and it was really painful. And yeah, the film about these the people. I was shocked to see the scenes in the film about the sports people. How did you film with them? In the middle of the night, crossing a river illegally. It was stunning to me. It's just amazing.
Baseball and forbidden reels. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we jump back to the river, could we ask Ariel and Sergio just to comment on that exact point that DT was picking up on, which is it was probably pretty dangerous to go to Afghanistan and to find yourself there and to shoot. And can you talk a little bit about that and your connection with some of the subjects that are featured in the film, and how did you get in behind the wall to see what you saw?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. It is a dangerous place. I think it's always, when I say that, it's out of respect for the people who live there every day and don't have a way to leave or are raising their families there. It's important to remember that it's a dangerous place. But it's also a place where the culture is very, very welcoming, very gentle, and very accepting of outsiders, especially in Kabul. And other places that are not in the heart of the conflict. So we were welcomed, and to be honest, there's a kind of community of filmmakers, isn't there, like across the world, and there's a real understanding, I think, between filmmakers that when you dedicate yourself to something that's so challenging and also so like it's not really a rational thing to do, is it, to make films? I mean, in some sense, it's very much an ecstatic journey. It's something you do because you're called to do it. And so I think there's this deep understanding between filmmakers, and the fact that we were there to honor the tradition of these filmmakers made us, I think, very, very, very welcome. And Arshad felt that too, I think. Yeah, Arshad actually came with us on one of our shoots and was so welcomed and loved and appreciated. And so you really feel, ironically, there's this great warm welcome of Afghanistan, even though there's a terrible, terrible conflict there. The connections that I have with some of the filmmakers go back many, many years. I mean, I first met Engineer Latif, our main subject, in 2009. And the same year I met Siddiq Barmak, actually. And so, but I didn't know that they had this incredible history.
Right.
For a while, I had thought about working on a film with Engineer Latif, but because he was so emblematic of the communist period in Afghanistan, I knew that, at a certain point, I couldn't just tell that side of the story. I needed to integrate the other side of the story. And I imagined perhaps there could be a filmmaker who also had been friends with him, who then went to the mountains and fought with the Mujahideen. And perhaps I could then show both sides of this particular historical period, which is one part of the film. But I had no idea that it was Siddiq Barmak, who's really the other kind of most prominent filmmaker of Afghanistan, and who was really very, very close with Latif. So that was a total surprise. All the evenings I'd spent with Siddiq before that, he'd never talked about this, and so it really felt like it was meant to be. Sergio, what about you? What was your experience in Afghanistan?
I mean, I had a great time. I mean, I was, as Ariel says, it's very true. It's a very welcoming culture. And I mean, one of the things that on any project, a lot of a project is made up of hardened individuals who struggle for, achieving this creative vision. And we had a great team, and so it's just like, and you really, when films succeed really well, I mean, there's the odd, of course, where there's some crazy people that are involved, as can be the case. But a lot of times it has to do with the fact that you just have a great team, and everyone really gets it, and they work really hard to achieve that. You can struggle in certain ways in terms of, values over the creative aspects, but to a large extent, you really need a solid team. And there's great people in Kabul that really helped us out, that Ariel had already worked with in the past. So we already knew, Dured Munajim, who was our DP, who had shot in Kabul in the past and had traveled in many different places, shooting in all kinds of adverse conditions. He's just like a steady cameraman. Like, he's just has an excellent eye, and was, just a charm to work with. I'd take him anywhere, that man, to the end of the earth if needed to, if I had a challenging film, So those were, so on the whole, I didn't feel insecure. I mean, we knew the risks going there, but because, you're with, confident crew, relaxed team, we're aware of what the threats are. We're staying with friends. They welcome us in. They've lived there. They know the way of operating. So it was I rarely felt insecure for the team or for ourselves. I mean, there was times where it's like you're filming in areas that you don't know anyone. So sure, you got to be on your toes. But by and large, it was a positive experience.
Well, I mean, we just Sergio, we have another film in the festival that was shot, a feature in Afghanistan, and very harrowing circumstances that this filmmaker went through as a female Afghan filmmaker. So, I'm sure there were a little bit of challenges. I wonder if you could speak to any adventures that you might have had bringing the film home, or if you're allowed to say what went on. But I, just in terms of the precious cultural history that you were preserving here, and how it might have been viewed by others, and when you brought it back, were there any challenges?
Well, for sure. I mean, there was definitely a lot of challenges in terms of working on the film. One of the things that Ariel and I wanted to do was and in the film, there's a series of moments that are sort of reliving the filmmakers' lives earlier, and it sort of it plays back to some of the work that they did, as well as some of the moments that they experienced that were poignant. And we wanted it to be symbolic to the film, so we decided to shoot it on Super 16 film. And that added a whole another layer of complication, but it also opened up the opportunity for us to work with local Afghan crews who had experience, who had had the equipment. So we were able to sort of go places. At one point we went, this 6-hour journey, maybe a little less, into the mountains, sort of northwestern Kabul, into Panjshir. And it was, they would load up, they had a small little, Japanese truck, and they loaded up the crane and, dolly tracks and everything. And we just trucked off with the crew into into this wilderness of the Afghan mountains. And then we were able to film these locations and set it up, and they would, it was a whole team that had worked with this dolly and crew and crane, and so it was a wonderful opportunity. But on the way back, of course, we had to bring back the film. There's no labs in Kabul, so we had to fly the negatives unexposed. And of course, there is, due to security, there's an endless array of X-ray scanners, and one X-ray scanner, well, it won't destroy your film. It slowly tears into it as you're going. So I literally had to, on the way back, convince every security checkpoint to not scan these celluloid unexposed films. So I had to tape them up. I had to get permission from the government to say that these were such and such. And of course,
Wow.
What is a government paper? It doesn't mean much in most cases. So
it was very good use of your white privilege.
It
Sergio.
was definitely, I think anyone who
there were
was
7
not
X-ray
white
machines
would,
in Kabul airport alone.
Yes, it was, and
And
then also
Sergio
Istanbul
got
as
through.
well. I mean, so it was like every way along the journey because we had the layover, and
like-
they're also very intense about their security. But I think by
I can
far,
imagine.
you know, yeah, let's say it's a positive use of white white privilege.
Only he could have done
Well-
it, honestly. It's true.
Yes,
But
we would have all
speaking
been
of-
pulled over.
exactly. Speaking of, speaking of going and working with different people of different ethnicities and so on, like, Sami, you and Michael went to Cuba, and you went to Costa Rica, and then Mexico, and I don't know, so many countries. You went through all of Central America, basically. How was that? How was it going through the different, how did you get access? And I mean, I guess you must have really also realized your privilege as having American or British or Canadian passports and so on, and understood the ease with which you're able to travel. How did you film those scenes, when these people are getting caught by police and like these very stressful scenes? Can you talk a little bit about that before we wrap up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Go
Sam.
for it, Mike. No,
Oh,
go for it.
Okay. Well, at the point when our main protagonist ends up hitting the road and traveling across Central America, as you alluded to, we had been in with these guys for almost a year at this point, and Deepti talking about access to characters, made me just sort of remember how lucky we were that these young men that we were filming really opened themselves to us, and they were very authentic on or off the camera. So at that point, we were expecting one of these guys to sign or something exciting to happen. Well, somebody gets kicked out and has to hit the road. So, we went down there, and Sergio talking about the importance of team. We're a small team, just three of us, Sammy, John Miller, and myself. And when the three of us were together, that's as big as it got. Oftentimes it was one or two of us. So even, I ended up flying down there when our main character got cut and hit the road. John was setting up the camera. Sammy was looking a country or two ahead, making sure that the path was clear. We weren't shooting on film, but I did have to sent a hard drive back to Sammy when I was in Nicaragua. I wasn't traveling with a computer. It took all day to do that, but I'm shooting on a little 5D and throwing things into a backpack. And, but you really, traveling with not just our main characters, but the other immigrants that were on the road at that time was just a beautifully humbling human experience. I was laying low, but it was quickly embraced by these folks as they understood I was documenting part of their travesía, their journey. So from a personal safety standpoint, when there were choices to be made, we were all in this together. So I was just concerned about risking the footage that we had already shot, but my instincts were to stay as close to our characters as possible. So I was lucky, to have Sammy and John in my corner back in the States.
That is so amazing. I mean, all of you have had such brilliant journeys with your films, and they all spoke to the MISAFF programming team loud and clear. It's been a pleasure having this suite of films. We don't have many slots, but you guys have really presented some of the best of the year in documentary here at MISAFF. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I don't know, Arshad, if you have another few thoughts that you want to share.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I just want to thank all our audience members as well. MISAFF continues from the 4th to the 12th of December, and all the films are streaming. And please check out our filmmakers. I want to thank Dipti Gupta, Sami Khan, Michael Gassert, Ariel Nasser, and Sergio Kirby, and all of their subjects who were so awesome. And we got to see their stories, and they got to share their stories with us. This is courageous and brave filmmaking. Thank you for joining us. Please check out the other movies and share the news about our films on social media at @mosaic_MISAFF and #MISAFF20. Have a wonderful day.